Good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to another Revolution in Agriculture webinar. This is winding up our 2020 season. November this month is going to be the last of our session. So we have sausage making tonight. Next week we have burger patties. The following week we have climate smart agriculture. And I believe we also have a sustainable farming system session.
And I'm not sure, but
All
yeah,
right. So
yeah.
Okay. So folks, without any further delay, let me hand over to Riyad Mohammed, who is our lecturer presenter tonight, and he has accommodated us for most of the sessions we did for this 2020 season. And we will be moving forward by God's grace with much more sessions for 2021. So Riyad, over to you.
Okay, so good night, everyone. I will start to share the screen now. Could you all see clearly?
Yes.
Yes.
Let me just get this on the big screen, 1 second. Great. Perfect. All right, so good evening once again. Tonight we will be presenting and learning about sausage making. This is a strong collaboration between homegrown business solutions and tropical agriculture consultancy services. My name is Riyad Mohammed. All right, so a brief presentation outline for tonight. We'll go through a bit of how sausage was made in the earlies. Before we get into the meat of the presentation, we'll explain a bit on what is good agricultural and good manufacturing practices. We'll go through the types of sausages, the sausage making ingredients, the sausage making process. I'll briefly present on 2 recipes. We'll also discuss the hazard analysis and critical control points and some biosecurity measures we want to put in place as we venture into operations like these. Our vision at Tropical Agriculture Consultancy Services is to be the leading agribusiness development and consultancy company, promoting sustainable agribusinesses and to improve the livelihoods of all communities. All right, so we'll just get into a bit of the good agricultural practices. So what's the purpose of good agricultural practices? Or what is it exactly? It's really sustainably producing food of a high quality, high and nutritious quality consistently. All right, in terms of good manufacturing practices, this is a set of principles, regulations, and technical recommendations applicable to production, processing, and food transport, addressing human health care, environmental protection, and improvement of worker conditions and their families. So in a nutshell, these would have summarized what we call in the business world the triple bottom line. All right, where we want to focus on the people, the planet, and profits. All right. In terms of PPE, personal protective equipment. So in the agricultural field, using PPE is not only highly recommended, but it's mandatory by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or also known as OSHA. All right, so why do we use PPE? The reason we use the PPE is to reduce risks that may be harmful to health in both short and long term. These are some of the areas the PPE will cover, such as your eyes and face, hearing, respiratory, hands, head, feet, and even clothing. So now we shall venture into the history of sausage making. All right, so sausage making is just a way of preserving meat, generally speaking. Now, man started to preserve meat when they understood how to use salt and the environment, such as sun drying and air drying. Sausage making involved when men learned these techniques, but it also had a part to play with when they understood what agriculture was about, all right, in particular livestock production. So the original ingredients for sausage making were the less tender cuts of meat, organs, and blood. Organs in this presentation we'll also refer to as offals. All right, so using those ingredients, we'll add in now spices, and then you case. So that's generally how sausage making was done hundreds of thousands of years ago. Sausage making today, however, is now an exquisite culinary art in the value-added chain of agricultural products. So there are over 250 varieties of sausages that are sold today under thousands of brands. Sausage making goes well with the meat that's used. All right, so we'll go a tiny bit into how do you get that quality meat. All right, the country of origin and the cultural flavors. Hence the need to create sausages for Trinidad and Tobago. So sausage is not just a general term for a consumable product, but it's very personal. So each country makes its own types of sausage. Each country also flavors the type of sausage differently. So the sausage fits perfectly into our busy lifestyles. So in terms of having that market supply and demand, it is already there. The demand is there. All right, it's good for appetizing and entertaining. It's quick, easy, and affordable meal for kids and parents, and it's safe to consume. All right, with the added effects of salt, pH, curing, drying, and cooking. Why use sausage, or what are the benefits of using sausage? It has an excellent flavor. It's also made with high quality protein. It has a full and a complete profile of amino acids. It promotes growth, maintenance, and also repairs body tissues. And it's also packed with a lot of vitamins and minerals. Before we get into, well, deeper into the sausage making process, I want you all to understand that the major ingredient in sausage making is meat or meat byproducts. So here we have to understand where those come from, and it's really coming from livestock production. So we have to understand that there are 6 factors of livestock production that will contribute to quality meat and meat byproducts. The factors of livestock production are nutrition and feeding, breeding and reproduction, housing and environment, health and disease, socio-economic considerations, animal behavior, and welfare. So creating that perfect type of meat or meat byproduct, sausages will be made up of different types of meat, such as beef. And here's where we'll also gently touch on what is carcass fabrication and what is dressing percentage. Carcass fabrication is how you or how your master butcher cuts different parts of that carcass to get a certain type or portion of meat. Dressing percentage is known as the percentage of meat obtained from every live animal. All right, so here you could see the carcass of that animal clearly fabricated into the ribeye steak, the T-bone, all these different parts, the fillet, the rump steak. So that is what carcass fabrication is. You could also use chevron or goat meat in burger patty or sausage making. You could also use lamb. So what's the difference between lamb and mutton? Lamb is the meat that is originated from an animal that is less than 1 year old. and look at the nutritional profile of such a red meat. All right, it has 258 calories, about 57% water, a high protein content. It has around 25 grams, and it has a lot of fat as well. And guess what you need in meat that makes perfect sausage and burgers? You need a lot of fat, right? Because the fat acts as a binding agent and adds so much more flavor to the sausage. Right, and these are just some general health benefits of lamb: for muscle maintenance, improve physical performance, and to prevent anemia. Here's how you could see the carcass fabrication clearly taking place. Cuts of lamb. Good, so now we could go directly into the sausage making process. What type of meats could we use in the sausage making process? On the conventional base, we have used beef, veal, chevron, which is goat meat, lamb, mutton, different types of poultry such as turkey, even chickens, and in some places in the earth we use wild game, or in our zone we call them neotropical animal species. So there are generally 6 different types of sausages. There are fresh sausages, uncooked smoked sausages, cooked smoked sausage, dry sausage, semi-dry sausage, and cooked meat specialties. Now you will recognize, and we'll discover this later on in the presentation, that each of these has a distinguishing type of criteria similar to the cheese making class. Fresh sausage. So fresh sausage is made from ground meat, not from the byproducts. And you would remember that the byproducts are what we call organs or offals. All right, so these fresh sausages are mixed with seasonings and then packed into casings. However, it must be cooked before eating. All right, and what is good about the sausage is that we could use a variety of meats to have several different combinations to create that ideal or unique type of sausage. So in the fresh sausage, you have no more than 3% water, which means the moisture content is very low. All right, and you have a lot more solids. The fresh sausage also has many binders and extenders, such as wheat flour or non-fat dried milk. By USDA standards, there are 4 major types of fresh sausage. You have the fresh pork sausage, which is no more than 50% fat by weight. So you could see how high the fat content is in any of these sausages. A fresh beef sausage, where you have no more than 30% fat by weight. The breakfast sausage, which is the only sausage out of these 4, you will be allowed to have byproducts, that's the capital BP. You will have no more than 50% fat by weight. And then you have your whole hog sausage, which is no more than 50% fat by weight. So you could get from this slide alone the level of fat required to make sausages. That's why on the conventional list, you will not have seen it on the top rank, goat meat being one of the meats used to make sausage because of the lower fat content. Italian sausage. So there are cured and uncured Italian sausages, both of which will be explained later on. It contains more than 85% meat. So it's a combination of meat and fat. However, the fat content should be no more than 35% of that 85% meat. All right, you want to season with salt, pepper, even anise, and you have no more than 3% water, so the moisture content is also low. You could also season with red and green peppers, garlic, parsley, and even additional dextrose. Your cooked smoked sausage. All right, so I'll go through the sausage making process just now. So I just want to sensitize you to the different types. So when we reach into the procedure, we'll understand what is being made. Right? So the cooked smoked sausage is fully cooked to a minimal internal temperature of 155 degrees Fahrenheit. Plus, you want to smoke during this process. However, it has a short shelf life on the refrigerated side where it only lasts 7 to 14 days. All right, so in preserving sausages to sell to customers, you have to use vacuum sealed packages. All right, and so an example of the cooked smoked sausage are the wieners or bologna, different types of salami, and red hots. The cooked smoked sausage continued. They can contain up to 40% fat, and you could even add water during this process. All right, so for some examples are the polished sausage, the cotto salami, the smoked sausage are more coarsely ground. All right, so the meat chunks are a bit bigger. However, the liver sausage and the blood sausages, they are steamed or cooked in a water bath. So there are different ways of making your sausage after you have created a combination of meats and a combination of seasonings. You could either smoke, you could either steam or boil, you could either do air dry or sun dry, which is also known as curing. For uncooked smoked sausages, all right, so smoke has a particular flavor for development, all right, and you would have been exposed to maybe some hickory flavors before, and even seen real life smokers. All right, so for the uncooked smoked sausage, it needs to be cooked before eating, and this must clearly be placed on the label. So it could either be worded by USDA standards, not ready to eat, or ready to cook, or cook before eating, or cook and serve, or needs to be fully cooked. And you must also place on that label, keep refrigerated. Remember, you don't want the public to just see the sausage and think that it's cooked. So proper labeling and branding is very important in the value added chain in terms of how you want people view your product. All right, so the uncooked smoked sausage could also be frozen for a longer shelf life, while the slide before would have shown the cooked sausage where it would have lasted 7 to 14 days in your refrigerator. Dry sausage. So after you stuff, you ferment and smoke, you could carefully air dry your sausage, similar to the air dry process of cheese making. All right, so in this procedure, you will develop a tangy flavor due to the fermentation and the lactic acid produced. How is lactic acid produced? Lactic acid is produced by microbial fermentation of the sugars available in the components of that product. So drying is accomplished by adding salt to meat to prevent spoilage. Dry sausage is also known as summer sausages and are generally eaten cold, such as salamis. How many of you have visited buffets and eaten cold sausages? You also have your fermented sausages, where a bit more fermentation takes place in this type of sausage, and the pH ranges from 4.6 to 5.3, which is acidic. All right, so this type of sausage goes through an aging process for a few days actually, where 15 to 25% of the moisture is removed, and this is slowly removed by time. They are cured but not cooked or smoked. So you realize the difference with this type of sausage. It is cured by air drying but not cooked and not smoked. So the same labeling applies. The shelf life is generally stable because of the lower water content. For instance, an example of the fermented sausage is pepperoni. Semi-dry sausage. Pronounced tangy flavor because of the aging process. Stuffed in a medium to large diameter natural castings, such as your large ruminants, such as cows or cattle. The pH for the semi-dry sausage is 4.7 to 5.4. Moisture content is around 35% higher. All right, so that's why it's called semi-dry sausage. It's generally smoked or slightly cooked and air-dried. The major difference from the semi-dry and the dry sausages is the longer ripening process and drying process, which changes with the different types of sausages you make. The mold ripening sausage. Now this is a different type altogether. This is where the microbes come in. Raw fermented products with a long ripening and drying time. So it's similar to the fermented sausages. However, you can add starter cultures such as staphylococci or lactobacilli and yeast, which contributes to different aromas and flavors in this type of sausage. All right, so the mold takes a bit more time to grow and enabling environment. Now, you making this type of sausage, the HACCP protocol, which is hazard analysis and critical control points, is more important in this process. This is a photograph of meat that has been mixed and ground. You all could even tell me after what you observe about the type of meat in this picture. If the red meat looks red and white looks or represents fat, what does that say about this type of meat? What is the fat percentage like? Now we shall go to ingredient selection. So what we want to do as sausage makers is begin with the end in mind. Think about how we want that sausage to taste or look, and let us get the correct ingredients to start this process. Firstly, what we want is to get a high quality product. So is that a high quality meat or high quality offals? So in terms of the meat quality, we should get well marbled meat. What is marbling? Marbling is the ratio of fat to muscle within a portion of meat. All right, what we also want for that meat is that we want no contamination or harmful microbes. All right, that's why we have to pay a special attention to how we store it, generally around 4 degrees Celsius, and how much salt we put on that meat. All right, and then we can become super creative now and add different types of seasonings, spices, and make new local combinations. Sodium nitrate is also heavily used in the sausage making industry at 6% concentration. It's a salt. Right? So here's how creative we can become in the sausage making process. We can use so many different types of spices and flavorings, such as bay leaf or basil. You could use cumin, black pepper, brown mustard, caraway, catnip, chicory, chili pepper, chives, clove, coriander, cumin, fennel, curry, ginger, lavender, lemongrass, mace, nutmeg, rosemary, paprika, oregano, peppermint, saffron, sage, even sorrel, thyme, wasabi, tarragon. So we have so many different herbs and spices we could use to enhance the flavor before even making any of these sausages. So that's how we become super creative of making unique types of sausages. So there are 4 different types of salt you could use. Any of them could work. So rock salt is generally produced from dried underground seabeds. Table salt, which we commonly use, is refined and fortified with iodine and contains anti-caking compounds to prevent clumping or caking. The kosher salt is an unfortified rock salt without anti-caking ingredients that can be used when cooking. However, you will need a bit more. And the sea salt is also obtained from evaporated seawater, and it's very potent. So salt is a major ingredient in sausage making. In terms of the ingredient selection, like I said before, sodium nitrate is used. And why is it used? It's really used to inhibit the production and growth of many microorganisms such as Clostridium, right, which produces a toxin. Salt also adds, or sodium nitrate also adds the color characteristics for the sausage. It improves flavor, right? Now there are other ingredients you could use if you want to make sausage at the commercial level. You could focus on using starter cultures, which are inoculum of bacteria that produces lactic acid from the sugars in the products. You can use or add encapsulated acids in the form of citric or lactic acid to the batter for the acidification of the sausage. You could even add reducing agents such as ascorbates. All right. On a commercial level, you could also add the mold inhibitors. That's if you have a lot of microbes in your sausage. All right, and this is where you generally dip the sausage in a mold inhibitor solution, typically 2.5% of potassium sorbate. Even add binders or extenders. This is more common for you to use because what we really want to do is to carry down the total cost of production. And what is the highest cost of making a sausage? It's the meat. All right. So adding binders and extenders, it also retains natural juices, and like I said, to reduce the final cost of the product. Such extenders and binders are non-fat dried milk, cereal flours, and soy protein products. Lastly, we could even make healthy types of sausage or healthier types of sausage by adding antioxidants. All right, so it's approved for use in the fresh sausages to retard oxidative rancidity and to protect the flavor and the integrity of what we just created. All right, and these are some of the options you could use: BHT, BHA, and TBHQ. Now we shall focus on the sausage making equipment. So thankfully, the sausage making equipment is not as rigorous as most other value-added operations. Easily, it can be used by getting a scale or made by getting a scale, meat grinder, meat thermometer, liquid smoke such as the photo on the left, a smoker, a refrigerator, a bowl chopper, and a sausage stuffer. You could do it manually or automatic. So these are just some general cooking measurements before we enter into the recipe making phase. 3 teaspoons is equal to 1 tablespoon. 2 tablespoons is equal to 1 ounce. 4 tablespoons is equal to 1/4 cup. 1 cup is equal to 8 fluid ounces. 2 cups is equal to 1 pint. 2 pints is equal to 1 quart. 4 quarts is equal to 1 gallon. All right, so this is the general operational process of how we'll make our sausage. What we want to do is to get that perfect raw material or the meat. We want to weigh and measure all the ingredients first. Then we want to grind all the contents. Then we want to mix all the contents. After which we will stuff and then link to form sausages, and we could either smoke or cook soon after. Right? That's generally the entire sausage making process in 4 major points. So we shall start with mechanical grinding and mixing. All right, so the starting meat should be around 4 degrees Celsius during grinding and mixing. So you want to keep the meat as cold as possible, not frozen, but as cold as possible through the mechanical grinding process. All right, so we want to grind the meat coarsely first. Then, add all our herbs and spices, salts, and other flavorings. And what we could do is actually make that into a water solution and then add to that coarsely ground meat. Then put it back into the grinder and then grind to a smaller particle size until the desired consistency. All right, but we don't really want to make large batches of meat. So we want to go to a max of 25 pounds of meat or raw ingredients at one point in time. That's really so the flavors could be evenly dispersed. Stuffing. So where do we get that shape from, that sausage shape from? Ideally, what we want to use is casein materials, which could either be natural or artificial. We usually use on the natural side the gastrointestinal tract of the ruminant animal. All right, so if you want larger tracts, use large ruminants such as cattle. If you want smaller tracts, use sheep or goat tracts, which are known as small ruminants. All right, so we also have the option of using manufactured caseins as well. All right, but before we pack the mixture into the caseins, you want to soak the cases in lukewarm water for 30 minutes and then wash the inner layer of that case with cold water. All right, and I would like to recommend that the fibrous caseins are stronger to use. Now, the good thing about caseins is that they are permeable to smoking and well adapted for moisture loss. So they are the perfect membrane to hold that sausage. All right, so there are synthetic edible caseins, there are synthetic non-edible caseins, there are fibrous caseins and collagen casings. The collagen casings are man-made and are of a uniform size and strong and very easy to handle. Usually use this in commercial operations, and it's more used in dry sausage making, and it shrinks well. Now we reach to heat processing or thermal processing. Here is where we smoke and heat to pasteurize the product and to extend the shelf life of the sausage we just made. So we made the sausage and we shaped it. All right. So the impacts are the external flavors with the product. So smoking allows the external flavors to penetrate that membrane and to be concentrated within the sausage. All right, so the smoking and the cooking process also aids in color development. If any of you has ever made sausage before, you would realize that sausage is generally red when it now starts, and when it's raw, and when it's cooked, it tends to get a bit brown to dark brown. All right, so the heating process causes the protein within the casing to move to the outer surface of the sausage, so it actually firms up and it holds the contents and shape after that heating process is finished. Some products are smoked while others are generally cooked. For instance, if you want to go through your smoking process, for the smoke and polish sausage, you want to smoke for 1 hour at 150 degrees Fahrenheit, then for 2 hours at 170 degrees Fahrenheit, until a temperature of 141 degrees Fahrenheit within the sausage is attained. After that process, you want to spray with hot water for 30 seconds after the smoking. And lastly, you want to dip in cold water until that sausage that was 141 degrees Fahrenheit reaches 100 degrees Fahrenheit. After that, you want to leave for 1 to 2 hours to dry, and then you could store. That's for the smoking process. For the cook process, it's much easier. So after packing into the casing, you want to place the sausage into hot or boiling water to reach 170 degrees Fahrenheit until that sausage itself or the core of the sausage reaches 155 degrees Fahrenheit. Ideally, what you want to do is to ensure all the meat is cooked at a low heat. So these are just two basic recipes. Beef jerky ingredients. So how do you make beef jerky? You get 5 pounds of lean beef, 1.5 tablespoons of salt, 1 tablespoon of black pepper, 1.5 tablespoons of cardamom, 2 tablespoons of marjoram, 1.5 tablespoons of cure or pink color, right? Salt could also act as the colorant for your sausages. You need 2 teaspoons of monosodium glutamate, 2 teaspoons of cayenne pepper or any type of pepper that you have available, 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, half cup of liquid smoke, that's if you don't have a smoker, and half cup of water. It's a very simple process where we want to mix all the ingredients from the list above, and we want to grind the contents to the size that we desire. We want to press that content into a flat loaf pan. And after pressing it, we want to put it into the freezer to get a bit of a form or a shape. Then after we practice the slicing. After the slicing is done, you want to slice as thin as possible so you could cook properly throughout. Then you want to lay the slices on oil-coated heated oven racks. After you lay it out, you want to spray the product with liquid smoke and the garlic solution, and then allow that sausage to dry in the oven for 170 degrees Fahrenheit between 2 to 3 hours. It depends on the amount of marbling in the lean beef that you would have gotten. That's how simple the process is to make beef jerky. Recipe 2. How do you make a blood sausage? And the diagram or the figure on your right will show the automatic sausage or casein filler. Right, so you need 1 pint of blood, any type of livestock blood, 1 type of milk or water. You need 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1.5 teaspoons of ground cloves, 1.5 teaspoons of ground allspice, 1 tablespoon of salt, 1 cup quick cooling rolled oats, and 5 to 6 cups of flour, enough to make a fairly stiff dough. So as you will recall, what is the flour used for? It's as a filler and an extender. Right? So it's generally a very simple process once more, where you mix all the ingredients, you place it into the casings, either doing manually or automatic. You place the sausages into salted boiling water, right? So the water must be boiling in this instance. You are not baking it. You want to cook the sausage until brown throughout. So you just cut one of the sausages to test if it's fully cooked. And how do you tell if it's fully cooked? When the sausage turns brown. And this could be eaten with butter or syrup and even cut into small pieces and refried. That's how simple you could make 2 different types of sausages. Now remember, this is not a livestock production commodity or a crop production commodity solely, but it's a value-added product we are making. All right, so we have to go through a bit more of the food safety guidelines. These are some of the food safety guidelines. Ideally, what we want to do is wash our hands for 20 seconds with soap and water between procedures or between batches. You want to use clean and sanitize equipment from the start of the operation. You want to sanitize the work surfaces with chlorine bleach solution. The mixture is 1 tablespoon per gallon to allow to air dry. You want to keep the raw meats separate from all the other feed ingredients or food ingredients. You want to keep that meat at least 4 degrees Celsius when storing and mixing. But when you are cooking, you want to cook the meat at low constant temperatures. Now, these are some of the pathogens you may encounter while making sausage. All right, the more common ones are E. coli, Salmonella, Campi, Listeria. All right, so we just have to be very careful of what and how clean our environment is while we do each or any of these procedures. As it comes down now to the hazard analysis and critical control plan, what should we consider if we want to go into commercial sausage making? We must have trained personnel. We must have accurate production descriptions in terms of labeling. We must have a clean, clear operational process flow diagram so we know exactly what we are going to do, when we are going to do it, and how we are going to do it. And in each of those points, we could analyze the hazard analysis at each point, the beginning or the end, or even during the procedure. All right, and then we must establish the critical control points, determination, establish our critical limits, and establish monitoring procedures. And after we have done that, we also want to develop corrective actions so if any of those procedures don't go according to plan. We also want to have verification procedures as well as have updated SOP manuals and practice proper record keeping. SOP is standard operating procedures. These are some of the references that was used to make the sausage making PowerPoint tonight. So I know we have a lot of questions, but before we reach that stage, I have some questions for you. Can you please take a note of these? The first question is, how difficult is it to produce sausage with limited resources? How can you make sausage that most people or most competitors can't replicate? And how can you add the sausage making process to a livestock operation? Take 1 minute to write down these 3 questions. Thank you for your attention this evening. I will stop sharing the screen now. Yeah, so let me address some of these questions, if that's okay. Right, so when I asked the first question of when that meat came out of the mill, how did it look? It looked pretty lean. All right, so ideally for sausage making, we want enough marbling or enough fat in the meat itself. Risha is asking if there are any alternatives to sodium nitrate. Yes, Rish, common table salt could work well enough or just as well. Miss Guy is asking, where can you get those cases? Okay, usually my students ordered it online before. I could try to source a local company, but usually if you want those caseins from the natural source, what you have to do is just go to the abattoir every Thursday or Sunday or Saturday, depends on the market you want to go to, and ask them for the gastrointestinal tract of each of the ruminants. And that's how you get the natural caseins. And you could wash it, then you could put it in your lukewarm water, and you could make sausages at home. Miss Guy is also asking how to make pudding. Yes, that is also called blood sausage. So pudding and blood sausage is very similar. The difference is one is in a sausage form, while the pudding might just be in a flat tray or otherwise. But it's the same process. Yeah. Any other questions, or could we go to the 3 major questions at the end
No,
of the
I think we
session?
could have a little discussion because I know at least one person would have joined kind of late, right? So we can have a little discussion because even as you was going through, number one, I didn't realize it had so many different methods of making sausage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is very, very interesting the more you look at the whole agribusiness cycle, understanding how the different parts link together and where are the highly profitable areas. So what I was wondering is how would, sausage making partner with the overall agriculture process, right?
Yeah.
So let me just put that there and we could have a little discussion on that.
No problem. If you want, we could respond. I could respond to it now. So the good thing about sausage making is it should be attached to almost every livestock or every ruminant livestock project, especially if you have a meat operation running. Remember, the dressing percentage has a lot to do with how much meat you will sell, but how much of the animal is not fully utilized. Where do all the organs go? Where do all the entrails go? Where do all the extra fat and products go? You know, so the output from one system should be the input for another new system, such as your sausage making system.
Yeah, so let's say somebody has say a small scale animal production farm going on, right? So typically what would happen is, now this is just me assuming here, so people raise the animals, right, as we would have covered in some of the other sessions.
Yeah.
They slaughter them, they either sell them whole, like if it's chicken, or you cut it up in parts, or you cube it, right? And so not much in terms of actual processing or post-slaughter processing
Correct.
goes into these systems, right?
Correct.
And in doing that, I think a lot of the smaller farmers miss out on more revenue generating opportunities that
Correct.
doesn't necessarily have to be a large operation.
Correct. So what
It's not like you have to go and spend or try to raise an extra 300,000 to start
sausage
one of
making?
the
No.
added value
No.
operations.
Correct. So what most small farmers don't do, they don't practice proper carcass fabrication, which is of course we'll be doing in 2021. Now, when you learn how to do proper carcass fabrication, you could get more value for the same animal at slaughter, because you will be able to separate your prime meat cuts and then your secondary and tertiary products. All right. And isolating the secondary and tertiary products, that will be the new inputs for your sausage making process. What will be very beneficial is if you had several different species of livestock and you could isolate portions or combinations from each of the outputs to be new inputs into your sausage making process.
Yeah.
So then you could actually come up with a nice combination of a 3-meat sausage.
Right. Yeah. So let's see. Something else I was looking at. Now we had covered this somewhat in the cheese making session, right? But in terms of sausage making, what sort of capital would be needed to start a small operation? And I say that in a general sense.
Right.
Meaning, is this something that, okay, this is something where you might have to go and get a loan?
No.
Or get some sort of financing? Or this is something that, over the course of a few months, somebody could do out of pocket?
I believe between $20,000 to $30,000 TT, you could buy your grinder and your casein filler. And that's the two major equipment you really need if you want to run a semi-commercial operation. That could be done in a small space, using 25 pounds of meat at a time.
Right.
Yeah, so it's very manageable for a homeowner to have an operation like this going.
And then even things like the smokers, these are not things that necessarily, that don't have to be too big.
No, it's a barbecue pit with a special type of wood and a few different seasonings in it to create a unique flavor.
Right.
But the official term is a smoker. So we have to become innovative at how we want to generate new revenue streams.
Yeah.
And utilize all the byproducts from other industries to feed into a even higher paying industry.
Right.
Excuse Riyadh. I know you were mentioning the portion of meat should have fat in it, but is there a particular section of the animal which is better the leg or the stomach, to make sausages?
So usually the loin area is a lot of meat. So generally around the rump area and part of the leg, you might get a bit more fat, right? But it really depends on generally what I said earlier, the livestock production and how the farm managers grow the animal. If you feed it a healthy diet, it will be well marbled. If you feed it a very lean diet, you wouldn't have much marbling after slaughter.
And I suppose also the amount of exercise the animal gets as well will affect the fat content in the muscle.
Correct. Especially exercise goes hand in hand with feeding as well. Because if you exercise and feed well, you will have well muscled meat and marbling. But if you exercise a lot and not proper feeding or not enough energy to carry out the operations, the fat stores in the animal will be used up.
Right.
Thanks. And then when it comes to processes like these, what we want are young, well marbled, juicy animals. Not animals on a farm over 10 years old, where the muscle fibers are like rubber, And that's where we need to mesh the gap between livestock production and using the proper ingredients for the value-added streams.
So therefore, what age animal is best to make sausages?
That's a very hard question to answer because we're speaking across species, across breeds, and across management practices. So there's no ideal 6 months or 4 months or 1 year.
Okay.
It's really about management,
Well, I guess this now would really tie into the whole brand and your production, because you may use one age animal or one type of animal for a particular sausage to get a particular taste, a particular
flavor. Yeah.
Different. So, all right.
You had a question there, Cohen?
Yeah, sorry, internet. Yes, now when we did like cheese and stuff, we know we spoke about IP, right? Do we have similar practices even with respect to sausage making in terms of branding, like Italian sausage? That is just a general term as opposed to something that refers to a specific city in Italy, like we might have with these, right? So what is the situation, or how should we approach that?
Right. So if you want to become creative as a sausage maker in Trinidad and Tobago, you should read out the Intellectual Property Act, right? And that will give you all the rights and how to register a proper business and even register proper formulas, for the secret creations you want to make. Yeah, so nobody could coin your name or even your methodology. All right. As it relates to cheese, thank God the sausage making industry is not as rigid as the cheese making industry. Right? It is to some extent, but definitely not as rigid.
Right.
So there's still room to do some good work.
Okay, cool, man. All right. Anyone has any questions, you all feel free to. Right, and let's just continue our discussion. As you would have realized, what we try to focus on much more in these sessions is giving you a good overview of how the business operates, because it is easy to research recipes and methods, right? You have that all over the place. What we are looking for is people really who want to go past just learning for the sake of learning and want to actually use that information to do something, right? Hopefully that leads to some sort of new revenue stream.
Yep.
Yeah. So Any more questions, Rish, Joshua, Shanika, Nalini, Beverly? Feel free to unmute and ask the questions.
Okay, what is the status on maybe vegetarian sausages? Like, is that a thing?
Yes, it is. I didn't cover that in this PowerPoint because it's only 1 hour long. And well, generally speaking, a true sausage is made out of meat or meat byproducts. Under the vegan part of next year's courses, we will be covering vegan sausages and patties.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, any more questions? All right, so here's what. So we have a question for you now. I'll go to question 2 first. Right, and this question is, how can you make that most people won't be able to replicate? Right, so how can you make a sausage that most people won't be able to replicate? Go ahead, Risha.
No, I wasn't going to answer it. You were breaking up for a while, but you read the question again. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
And anybody could answer.
So, yeah.
Well, I think with any recipe, I mean, of course, with products, you will have to put the ingredients, but you don't need to put the amounts. So you can always, work up your formula.
Right.
And that way, persons may not be able to know exactly, it's 1 tablespoon of this and a teaspoon of that.
So if I were to make a sausage, a special sausage, first to begin, I'd like to change the raw materials I'll use. So I'll use some beef for some nice fatty flavor, but I might also use something like rabbit meat or goat meat and change that original ingredient mix. Even get some neotropical animals to try sausage making with, like the capybara or the lap. Right, that's the first way I'd like to change that sausage. The second way I'd like to change the sausage is by using different combination of seasonings, and more so locally made or produced seasonings. So use different meats, use different seasonings. And thirdly, what I'd like to do is also use a different cooking method. So not follow any strict smoking regime, but maybe design a smoker with different types of wood that I would smoke, and then or maybe parboil first and then smoke to encapsulate the flavor. So all of these things will make you have a competitive sausage at the end of the process, and not just a generic product.
Something else I would say plays a big role is how we partner with farmers, or if we producing the animals ourselves. Just as you see in cheese, and I think I'll keep referencing it, because of how rigorous the standards are, right? Yep. So one particular cheese maker would only make cheese from this milk, from this special type of animal grown only in this particular zone, right? So even from that level, partnering with farmers or having your own farm where you have very stringent methods on how you take care of your own animals, what you feed them, how you feed them, right? So yes, you might use beef. So somebody say, okay, Riyadh making beef sausage, and they just go and buy beef from any and anybody, right? Yes, they'll get beef sausage, but what will give you that competitive advantage and probably even allow you now to have a more to be able to sell your sausage at a more premium price is because of all these other factors that go into it. And your responsibility now would be to manage it, to ensure those standards are maintained.
Correct.
So that people, even if they blind taste, they should be able to say, nah, this is RIA beef burger, beef burger, and not patty, but this is RIA beef sausage, right? Because the flavor and everything is so distinct and unique that even amongst all the competitors, you could tell where this particular product came, right? And then added to that, just as Riyad would have said, you look at your seasonings, you look at how you want to flavor it, right? And again, you know, you maintain the standards with that.
Correct.
You know, I always look to our mastermind students to answer these type of questions. You differentiate.
Yep. You could go ahead and read question 1 now. Let's see who wants to answer.
I feel I will go to 3 again because
Okay.
I
I'll
feel like
leave one for
touch on one more. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So next question: how can you add the sausage making process to a livestock operation, right? And take into consideration some of the livestock we covered already for 2020, which is broiler, we covered rabbit, we covered duck, we covered goat, we covered sheep, we covered quail. Anybody else missing?
Agouti.
Agouti, right?
And Cohen, what I want to add to the mix now is even glaze that sausage with our locally made honey, especially our monofloral honey or our medicinal honey.
That is right. That sounds
as well as put a piece of mozzarella cheese on the side. You know, put a piece of goat cheese on the side or sheep made cheese. You know, so we have that nice tightly packed value-added product coming out from your farm.
Riyad, you see, you come on. I hope all you're taking notes, right? So you see from your operation now, you have 2 things there. So the only thing missing from that mix there is the hops. That's it, right? Yeah, sausage.
How we make it using cassava flour or supernatant flour.
And you could make your hops and let people order that too, right? So all right, let's hear from some other folks. How can you integrate with your farming operation, sausage making? Riyad, I feel you intimidate everybody with a glazed honey thing there, boy.
No, but Cohen, I know everybody like to eat here, so.
I feel it's hungry people get hungry now.
Yeah. All the you know, the seasonings you had, you know, you could grow your seasoning to put in or you can feed the animals the seasoning.
Right. So that is what I want you to all to get at when you speak about a closed loop system. So you could season your sausage and season the animal as well over time. Right, so you have seasoning infused animal or livestock.
What about honey? You're feeding the animal honey too? Again, the cow honey too?
Nah, that's just a honey sausage. Yeah.
All right, so last question now. How difficult is it to produce sausage with limited resources?
Let us ask Miss Guy. I think she might be able to help us with this one. Miss Guy, you could unmute and you could chat with us a bit. No need to be shy. If Miss Guy a little shy, we could try Miss Hart or Nalini.
Okay, so with limited resources, I think it wouldn't be difficult because as you were saying that you need like approximately about 30,000 to start. But for me, I think you could start like using a simple thing like a KitchenAid mixer
Food
and
processor. Yeah.
yeah, a KitchenAid food processor and get the grinder attachments for it and the stuffer. So you would be able to start easily.
Great. So you really don't need any of the machinery unless you're running a commercial operation. This could be done simply by using what exists in the kitchen already. Yeah, so it's generally very cheap to do a few experiments. And these kind of,
And
yeah,
added to that, the sausage don't have to be like the long sausage. It could be like the bite size.
correct. It could be small
The
ones.
bite size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can shape it and season it anyhow you want. And what is good, just like the cheese making class, you could make trials of these and practice at home and feed your guests so you don't have to buy any gifts for Christmas. Right? So it works well with entertaining and cutting down your general cost of living as well.
Right. So I think once again, you know, we are trying to dispel a lot of the myths and notions people have about business, right? And what, you know, how people view and see agriculture, because these are some fun and creative things we can do, right? And what is for me best of all is we are seeing you don't necessarily need to go and mortgage your house. You don't have to go and mortgage your house. You don't have to sell the car. You don't have to go and get 50 or 100,000 from a financial institution, right? That charging you how much percent interest and, you know, how much years now you had to work paying that off. We can start small operations, right? Experiment from home, okay? You know, get some very convenient and easy to source equipment, basically in cheese making, just as with sausage making.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this would continue for burger patty making, of course, next week.
Yeah.
It is basically utensils you might already have,
correct,
or
yeah.
something that is easy to source, right?
Yep.
And it just takes a little bit of adventure and some persistence to get started, and then you build the operation from there, right? So you grow as the needs grow, but you don't have to put yourself in any debt in order to get started.
Miss Guy have a little question. Let me just answer it, right? I'm going to answer it now.
Yeah.
So she's asking, how is packaging done? The same way you could package up a pinnacle, you could do the sausage. However, if you wanted to run a commercial operation, what we want to do is really vacuum seal our sausages. And when I say vacuum seal, I mean get a specific type of plastic that will properly store the internal contents from the external environment. All right, so vacuum sealing, there are also cheap vacuum sealing equipment right now for most homeowners, right? So that's how you really want to package the sausage. More importantly than the packaging is a creation of a proper, honest and transparent label. All right, and I showed you some of the terms you should use when labeling sausages, especially if it's raw or uncooked.
So when you said with respect to like the vacuum sealing equipment, can some of these things be sourced locally, or we have to bring in that from Amazon?
Yeah, we have a few consultants here who have it, who also do labeling and barcoding and packaging. They sell the like 5,000 to 6,000 for a piece of equipment.
Okay.
Yeah, I know a few of them well. Right. So Cohen, if that is okay, let me just ask the class what they thought of the sausage making session now.
Yeah, man.
Rish, I'll start with Risha. Rish, how you think the sausage making session went for a first time session?
Yeah, it went well. I mean, I myself, I didn't know there was so many different types of categories of sausages. So that it was really interesting.
Great, great. Let me just ask on the mastermind Joshua. Hey,
Hey,
Joshua, how you doing?
I'm pretty good. Today's
Nice.
session is pretty interesting. I'm ready to start now.
So you know, Joshua wanted to start the honey making. I'm not sure how much of the cheese making he see. Oh, if he see all three of them, now he want to make sausage, and he's still doing aquaponics. And that's some good feedback there. Nalini, what you thought about this session today?
The session was pretty good, but I have a question. When you imported the caseins, were there any problems to clear it with customs?
No, it just took about how much, boy? About 3 to 5 days, I remember. But
Okay, all right.
what you could also do is order it through a food company because they already have the channels going.
Or like what food company? Because I was just going to order it off Amazon.
You could order it off Amazon. That's one. If you could get an agro-processing facility, I could do some research and just check back my contacts and see. All right, and let me just put my number here. You could WhatsApp me.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's a really good question because I know even DevCo, I know they're doing more in terms of packaging and so forth. But I wonder if they are also looking into supplying.
No, NAMDEFCO focus more on the crop aspect. The body that's supposed to represent the livestock is the Livestock and Livestock Products Board. But they are non-functional for now, and they were the ones who were really responsible for getting stuff like this in here for us.
Okay.
That's why we have to usually revert back to Amazon to just say, import what we need privately. And if you don't want the synthetic one or the commercially made one, you could just source every week the natural GI tracks.
Okay, but how would that affect like standards in terms of let's say consistency of look and these other factors?
Well, the good thing about sausage making is that it's really a craft, right? Just like the cheese making. You remember how we had soft and the semi-soft cheese? Same thing with sausage, it's a craft. So each one that you twist and make, that's a creation. Or if you want to do it on the commercial side, once you have one consistent casing, the machine will do the rest of the work for you.
Yeah.
So generally consistent.
But I guess even looking at it just as how you explained it, all this really adds to the value of what is being produced as well.
Correct, yeah.
All right. So
let me just ask Miss Guy. Miss Guy, how you thought the session was tonight? Just unmute and tell us. Good, bad, or ugly. While we wait on Miss Guy, Miss Beverly Hart, if you want, you could just unmute and let us know how you thought the first session was.
So sorry, I'm now hearing the question. I hear mature in the
No problem. No problem.
Back and forth. For me, it was very, very useful, very helpful because I'm trying to start off an agri-processing business where I want to branch off into so much variety. It's a funny that apart from like making seasonings and jams, it's also nice to know that I could also go into sausage. I wish that I have met this earlier, that I could also learn cheese and so much more. So
you could actually get all the recordings for the cheese making, and they were amazing sessions.
I know, I did not know. It's only the sausage, and I was so excited, and I am glad, and I'm thankful for you for sharing all of this information and leaving your contact number for future references.
No problem. Thanks so much.
In addition to that, Shanika and company, we have, I would call it basically a ridiculous special offer going on right now where you can get all the recordings for the 2020 season. I'm almost ashamed to say live what you all would be paying for that, right? But basically, you could get the entire 2020 season between now and Friday for less than 100 US, right? Our whole school year Riyadh is about how much? If we had to charge for all these sessions,
30,000.
right? And why we are even offering this, or why we are doing this, because probably apart from Riyadh, or not so much Riyadh, but all of us are learning. Me, myself, every session is a learning experience for me. And the more knowledge we have, the more understanding we have of the agriculture industry, the more information that we can empower ourselves with. So even though you might be considering sausage making, cheese making, jams or something else, but when you get to learn about the agribusiness systems, right, of all these other inputs, it also broadens your own understanding. It might even help you look at new opportunities, right, that you could look at and get into, right? So don't feel that you have missed out. Okay, homegrown, we ain't leaving you behind. All right, so the cheese making sessions, all those things, they are available. And the cost you would pay just to get those 3 cheese making recordings is better you take the package.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we get ridiculous this week.
And let me just ask Miss Hart, what does she think of the session tonight?
Hi, good night.
Good night.
It was okay, but I came in late.
Uh-oh.
Some of the stuff I didn't understand.
Yeah, because we would have gone through a good bit before.
Yes, and I was thinking like if you all had recipes that you give out or something, of course.
Actually, I put 2 general recipes there. They can become very creative with it. You could switch up, like I said, the meats or the seasoning.
Okay, but I didn't get to write on the recipe.
You will get the entire recording actually to watch over and to get the recipes down.
Okay, but actually the sausage, it's like home use. I'm not gonna sell or open any business or anything like that.
Okay.
It's just for family.
Good.
So, yeah, so
okay,
it was okay. It was. If I get some recipes, I might be able to understand it a little more better.
Yeah, it has some recipes in the PowerPoint as well.
Okay.
All right. Thanks
So
so much.
that's it. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks. Yeah. So Cohen, we got good to review some all the students.
Yes, sir. So this was once again another very, very informative session, and we look forward to burger patty making, which is next Saturday, same time.
Yeah.
Right? And again, so for those of you that are interested in taking us up on this special that we have running for the next week, the next 7 days or so, the link is in the chat where you can get some more info, right? And yeah, you all continue to keep pressing, continue to keep learning, right? This season calls for us to be a bit adventurous. It calls for us to be creative. It calls for us to think outside of the box and probably do some of the things that we have been thinking about for all the years, but never actually made a move to implement. All right, because we already heard from, like, I think it's Nalini who gave us some recommendations, right, for the food processor and so forth. So you would have already been given this some thought. So yes, learn, even if it starts as a hobby, something you're just doing for your family. That is not a problem, because you might do it for your family, one of the children might take your home recipes, as has been done for many, many centuries, and go and start a business. And
Yep.
they tell the world, this recipe I learned from mommy, they mommy recipe, right? And then they add their own and take it from there. So even if you only do this as a hobby, and you do it home, and you do it for your family, and you expose your children to the processes, and when their cousins and things come over and you say, hey, Ole, we making some sausage today, you are actually investing in their future, because some one of them would probably take it and go even further with it. Yeah? So, Riyadh, closing remarks?
No, I'm very glad that we had a nice lively class tonight, and everybody appreciated the content. It takes a lot of work to build the presentations, and you know, I like to be as precise as possible. I like to let you all know the possibilities of what exists around you, you know, to just generate that extra revenue. Okay.
All right, well, folks, that's it for tonight's session. So as we will say, continue to say, let's get growing.
Good night.
All right. Good night.